Hey everyone, this is Cabane the Christian, and this is a reply to ProfMTH's first video in his video series, Jesus Was Not the Messiah. I do have a tremendous amount of respect for Prof. I think he's on the upper level of atheists here on YouTube, but let's get started. We must first discuss typology versus predictive prophecy. Typology was a method of Jewish exegesis in the 1st century. Matthew employed heavy use of typology in his book. Michael Fishbane offers this definition of typology in his book, Biblical Interpretation in Ancient Israel. He says, "A type is a biblical event, person, or institution which serves as an example or pattern for other events, persons, or institutions. Typology is the study of types and the historical and theological correspondences between them. The basis of typology is God's consistent activity in the history of His chosen people." In other words, typology is looking through God's actions in history and seeing how they foreshadow other actions in history. It is not the same as prophecy, where God tells someone exactly what's going to happen. Typology is a form of historical interpretation. Prophecy is prediction. The fulfillment passages in the Gospels, particularly Matthew, may use either prophecy or typology. This has a huge effect on Prof's videos because many of the examples of false prophecies he offers up are simply Matthew employing typology. Most modern readers do not recognize this and misinterpret it as Matthew being deceitful. He offers up 3 allegedly fabricated prophecies. Quote, Matthew 2:23, which claims that young Jesus and his family came to reside in Nazareth so that which was spoken to the prophets might be fulfilled. He shall be called a Nazarene. The words "he shall be called a Nazarene" do not appear in the Hebrew Scriptures. In fact, neither the city of Nazareth nor anyone from Nazareth is ever mentioned anywhere in the Old Testament. It's just not there. Unquote. Now I want Prof to note something very carefully. How does Matthew use this? He says, that what was spoken by the prophets might be fulfilled. He shall be called a Nazarene. Note the plural form of prophets. Is this typical for Matthew? Not at all. In fact, out of all the passages where Matthew notes fulfillment, this is the only time that he uses the plural form of prophets. It seems quite clear that Matthew is doing this deliberately. So what does he mean by this? Well, let's go to the Old Testament. Glenn Miller lists these examples where prophets are quoted as plural. In Jeremiah 35, "Again and again I sent all my servants, the prophets, to you. They said, each of you must turn from your own wicked ways and reform your actions. Do not follow other gods to serve them. Then you will live in the land I have given you and to your fathers." Jeremiah 44, "Again and again I sent my servants the prophets, who said, do not do this detestable thing that I hate." Zacharias 1, "Do not be like your forefathers, to whom the earlier prophets proclaimed, this is what the Lord Almighty says, turn from your evil ways and your evil practices." None of these are direct quotes, so what are they doing? They are summarizing multiple passages. 2,000 years later, we don't know exactly what passages Matthew is summarizing, but we can make educated judgments. We know from John chapter 1 verse 46 that Nazareth was not a particularly prestigious village. In fact, it was quite the opposite. And Nazarene was used as a disparaging remark. This correlates with Isaiah chapter 53, where the suffering servant is despised and rejected by men. The Gospel authors quite clearly saw Isaiah 53 as a messianic chapter. This is one example of a prophecy where Matthew would have seen it as prophesying that he will come from some place of low esteem. Essentially, we know that Matthew is not intending to make a direct quote, as demonstrated by his plural form of prophet, and thus the lack of a direct quote which is exploited by Prof cannot be used against him. Prof provides a second example. Quote, Matthew 27, 9-10. "Judas regretted his participation in getting Jesus arrested. Earlier we're told that the chief priests had paid Judas 30 pieces of silver to do the deed. Now in chapter 27, he is depicted trying to return the silver. He eventually throws it into a temple and goes off to kill himself. The chief priests decide to use the silver to purchase a potter's field, a cemetery for unknown and indignant people. Matthew 27, 9-10 proclaims, "Then that which was spoken through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled, saying, and they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of the one whose price had been set by the sons of Israel, and gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord directed me." Sounds impressive. The problem? Well, the footnote for Matthew 27, 9-10 in the New American Bible puts it well. Matthew's attributing this text to Jeremiah is puzzling, for there is no such text in the book. Prof then refutes 4 explanations I do not use. It is actually quite simple. Matthew is appealing to 2 prophets here, namely Zachariah and Jeremiah. He only lists Jeremiah. The Talmudic rabbis did the exact same thing, so this isn't unusual. Here are the relevant passages. Jeremiah 32, 6-9. Jeremiah said, "The word of the Lord came to me. Behold, Hanamel the son of Shallum your uncle will come and say, Buy my field that is at Ananoth, for the right of redemption by purchase is yours. Then Hanamel my cousin came to me in the court of the guard, in accordance with the word of the Lord, and said to me, Buy my field that is at Ananoth in the land of Benjamin, for the right of possession and redemption is yours. Buy it for yourself. Then I knew that this was the word of the Lord, and I bought the field at Ananoth from Hanamel my cousin, and weighed out the money to him, 17 shekels of silver." Zechariah 11, 12-13. "Then I said to them, If this seems good to you, give ye my wages, but if not, keep them. And they weighed out my wages, 30 pieces of silver. Then the Lord said to me, Throw it to the potter, the lordly price at which I was priced by them. So I took the 30 pieces of silver and threw them into the house of the Lord, to the potter." So Matthew isn't fabricating anything after all. Prof attempts to express a form of this explanation as follows, quote, "Now some apologists eagerly point to Zechariah 11, 10-13 as the source of the purported prophecy. 2 problems. First, Zechariah is not Jeremiah. Second, the passage in Zechariah does not say what the author of Matthew says." Unquote. Prof does not understand that Matthew is combining Jeremiah and Zechariah. Jeremiah says what Zechariah doesn't, and Zechariah says what Jeremiah doesn't. There is no problem here. And as a third example, Prof provides, quote, John 2:17. "In the 4 verses immediately preceding this, we are presented with one of the 3 different times the Gospels portray Jesus clearing the Jewish temple. According to the author of John, upon seeing Jesus do this, his disciples remembered that it is written, Zeal for your house will consume me." Unquote. This is one of the examples of typology that I spoke of above. I fully agree with Prof that Christians should not be using this in their fulfilled prophecies list. Most Christians are just as ignorant of typology as, with all due respect, Prof is. Prof then tries to provide several examples of misquoted and misapplied passages. 1. Quote, Matthew 2:14-15. "Mary and Joseph take the baby Jesus and flee from Herod into Egypt, where they remain until after Herod's death. So the author of Matthew claims, what was spoken by the Lord through the prophet might be fulfilled, saying, Out of Egypt did I call my son." Unquote. Again, this is just an example of typology. No problem here. Second example, Matthew 1:22-23. "An angel tells Joseph that his wife, a virgin, was made pregnant by God, and that the son will have to be named Jesus. The author of Matthew says, Now all this took place that what was spoken by the Lord through the prophet might be fulfilled, saying, Behold, the virgin shall be with child, and shall bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which translated means God with us." The prophet invoked here is Isaiah, specifically Isaiah 7:14, which says, "Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the young woman will be with child and bear a son, and she will call his name Emmanuel." Unquote. We'll deal with the issues relating to the virgin part of the prophecy in the next video, but here we'll deal with the issues Prof raises. Quote, "Isaiah clearly says that the child's mother will name him, and Emmanuel will be his name. By contrast, Matthew has an unidentified they calling the child Emmanuel." Unquote. Again, this is simply an anachronism on the part of Prof. The exegesis of that time allowed minor modifications to the text for exegetical purposes. This concept is utterly foreign to us, but it was fully acceptable, I repeat, fully acceptable within the context of that time, so do not anachronize and try to criticize Matthew for using exegesis of that time. Quote, "The author of Matthew changed the Isaiah passage. We've seen the author of Matthew fabricate a prophecy about the Messiah being from Nazareth," unquote, "as we've seen. He's done no such thing." Quote, "Misquote a passage from Hosea to make it seem about Jesus," unquote, "as we've seen. He is merely using typology." Quote, "Attribute a prophecy to Jeremiah that isn't in Jeremiah," unquote, "as we've seen. He is merely citing 2 prophets, but naming one." And quote, "Now we see him changing the wording of Isaiah 7:14," unquote. As we've seen, this is acceptable within the exegetical procedures of that time. And that's my response to the first part of ProfMTH's series, Jesus Was Not the Messiah. Thank you.